Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the VA Hunting Bros. I'm Eldon, and Lowell is here with me today. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey Eldon. Hey.
Good to be here. Early December, just kidding.
No, we're still in November. Bucks are still rutting.
Yeah.
But as soon as that calendar flips, the rut is over. Boom, just like that.
Yep, that's how it works.
It's crazy. Sad to say.
Sure is.
Sure, looking forward to next November already. 11 months away.
You're weird.
Can't get here fast enough.
Yeah.
Actually, I like October too. So let's fast forward to about 10 months.
Some parts of October are
Imagine if
good.
we did that. Your life would go by pretty quick. If you just fast forwarded for 10 months.
Probably there's a reason you can't do that.
I'm afraid I'd use up most of my life.
Well, if you could live longer years, like
there you go,
live to 400, but only
if you could just live October and November. Man, imagine that.
Yeah, so
then you could have about 300 years worth of October and November.
This podcast is getting off to a very weird start. This metaphysical
I bet a lot of hunters would almost sign up for that.
Yeah, hunters are strange people.
They're the best.
Yeah, so let's see, the last episode we recorded was before we headed to Missouri. And
I think it was an early bow season, actually.
Well, it wasn't too far before we headed to Missouri,
okay.
I don't think.
I'm remembering another one then. I didn't even go back and look.
I guess I could always look.
Doesn't matter. Primarily, we're going to talk about our Missouri trip.
That's right.
And probably won't do a lot of other updates.
Yeah, we'll do another podcast at some point about November around here, and maybe later on we'll do something else. Who knows?
And the buck I killed. And
yeah.
Hopefully by then the buck you killed around here.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Could already talk about the doe I killed.
That's a nice doe.
Anyway. So in Missouri. When did we leave from Missouri, Lowell?
Well, you left a day earlier than I did, so you left.
Are you pulling up the calendar too?
You left on Sunday. No, I have it memorized. You left on the 31st, which was a Sunday afternoon after church. You headed out. We basically ended up out there a day after you did due to some other circumstances.
Yeah, you had to go a circuitous route to attend to something else. So you guys got out there Tuesday, the 2nd.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because you were texting me. Well, we left Monday and actually spent the night somewhere, got out there Tuesday. You were texting me sitting in a tree on Monday.
No.
Yes, you did.
No, I got there Monday.
Okay, you were texting me Tuesday. That's
it was Tuesday morning.
You got there
Monday
in time to drive around a little bit.
I drove around for half an hour, 45 minutes.
Just right at the end.
It just worked out this year where time change was right at the end of our week in Missouri. So we had longer
if we go again at the
evenings,
same time next year, it'll kind of basically be the same.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice.
We ended up kind of liking that.
Because then it makes you don't have to get up so crazy early for morning hunts, and it makes your evening hunts last a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But that having that extra hour to either drive or get in or do whatever is sort of nice in the mornings.
The only downside to it is you get home at 7:30 at the earliest, and
eat supper and go to bed.
Exactly. Yeah, so Tuesday morning I went to a place I had walked through this spring, and there was some good sun there this spring. Well, I hadn't hunted the part of it where I had.
Okay.
But yeah, it was
you had a
lot that
an encounter on the last day 2 years ago.
Yeah,
with a pretty nice 10-pointer.
But I was out of position at that point. No, I don't think it was a 10. It was probably a nice 8.
You told me it was a 10.
Okay, maybe it was a 10. I don't remember. It all happened so fast, and once you see a deer and you're like, that's a shooter, you start thinking about shooting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so Tuesday morning.
Yeah, back to this.
I was in the tree. I think I sat till, noon? No, I didn't get out at first light for several reasons.
Right.
So it was like 9 or 10 till I got in a tree.
Yeah. You kind of scouted your way in and set up on some sign.
Yeah. And then you guys showed up, what, 4 or so?
Yeah, late, very late after a long day of travel. And, you ended up, you're like, well, are you going to try to get out yet this evening or what?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe I should just drive around and you should stay in your place. Anyway, then you ended up coming out and coming back and meeting me there.
Yep.
Which probably in hindsight you should have just stayed in your tree.
We don't know about hindsight, but maybe we saw a lot of deer that evening.
They were moving that night, man. We drove. We ended up just both jumping in your vehicle, driving around. Went to check some pieces of public.
Yeah. We're looking at parking lots,
30
at fields.
30 to 40 minutes away, I guess it was. That piece of public.
Yeah.
Which we had not hunted the previous time we were out there. We hunted it the first time, but not the second time.
Yeah.
So you had
Monday night.
Yeah, you bumped into the
Monday
manager
night.
For the public.
Exactly. Yeah, and he mentioned this other spot and said there's been tons of people everywhere, but maybe the other spot was a little overlooked. So Tuesday evening we zipped up there. We looked around.
Yeah,
kind of the home area a little bit.
Jumped into a place, just quick walked in. You drove around. And we knew that we would be seeing parking lots too. Yeah, and the pressure wasn't that bad.
Not at that point.
On that place.
Yeah. Oh right.
So we filed that into our mind. We thought about running north to a bow only area. But it would basically have been dark by the time we got there. Yeah. So then we were just like, well, let's go check out the closest piece of public. Yeah. And drive around. And so, just driving back, man, we were seeing deer. We saw a lot of deer that night in private fields.
Most of it was private, but we saw some real nice bucks too.
They were up and on their feet, and it was cool. Or cold. Yeah, chilly.
I don't remember all the details.
Yeah, but it was just one of those classic nights, man. That's when we were like, man, deer are moving like crazy. You should have just stayed in your stand. But,
yeah. Well, anyhow.
And we ended up seeing right near the place we were staying, saw a very nice buck on a fence row. Mm-hmm. And we were like, man, we should try to get permission on that farm.
Yeah, it's like 3 minutes away from our kind of home base.
So fast forward a few days, I actually stopped in to see about getting permission. Someone else was already hunting in there, and so that didn't work out. Yeah. It was a good try.
Yeah, well, you don't know until you ask.
I'm pretty sure that buck was locked down with a doe in there. And
you thought you saw him maybe the next day or a couple of days
nights
later.
After that, yeah. He was a big deer. I got one really good look at him walking away from me, going into the fence row.
Maybe he just had his ears pinned back.
Well, sometimes they look bigger. Well, they always look bigger walking way back. Yeah, he was a good deer.
They do.
So we drove around, I think checked some more parking areas, saw various people. And actually the pressure on the local piece was pretty high.
Yeah, which that ended up being kind of a something that we found all week long pretty much.
Recurring thing.
Yeah. So Wednesday morning, I don't remember exactly what we did. Did we drive around again Wednesday morning?
No. Yeah, so I was trying. Did we actually see some deer on public that night? On Tuesday night?
I don't remember.
Did we go to that spot in Glass?
Yeah, maybe. I think we saw a few does or something. Yeah, we definitely might have.
Yeah, so Wednesday morning, you dropped me off, and I went into a place that you had scouted that spring. We basically decided, okay, let's pick the 3 or 4 places that you had walked through that spring.
That had the good most spring, yeah.
So I hiked in to that place, and I had never hunted that section before, though I'd hunted.
I'm literally drawing a blank as to where it was. Oh, yeah, now it's all coming back to me as soon as I said that.
I basically did that big loop.
Yeah, I remember.
It was kind of a, not a lot of woods in that section. It was just a big,
it's like,
brushy section.
Yeah, it's
CRP,
like grasslands, sort of.
The stuff that you kind of think about in the Midwest or maybe farther west.
But it had some good edges and a really good gully up through it, kind of, that was thick.
Yeah, so I hiked in there, forgot my sticks, rookie mistake.
That's right, yeah.
Which I ended up, I'm not even sure if I would have went up a tree if I'd have had my sticks. It was kind of, the gully was pretty narrow.
Yeah.
I didn't really like my setup, but I set up for an hour or so right at first light.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a weird place. I think I remember thinking this spring, I thought you might get up a tree or two, but...
Well, it could have. I'm just not sure if it had a better shot or not.
Well, and the other thing is, when I was there in April, or whenever, March...
Pre-green up.
Yeah, it was wide open.
Yeah, the leaves, there was still a lot of cover on the trees.
We had a ton of leaves early
because they actually, they pretty much got the first killing frost right
while we
got there.
Yeah.
And you went to another place where you had...
Yeah, I'm still trying to remember exactly
where I went.
It was
the place where I saw that buck then a few nights after that. Where I saw that buck running across the road and that guy whistled at me.
Man.
It was on the far side of...
You whispered that almost too loud.
Yeah, anyway. Doesn't matter.
That wasn't the morning I went. Yeah. You
hiked in there.
Yeah, it's all come back. It was another place that I saw this spring that looked really promising. Yeah.
Which we had never been to.
I think we need to record these quicker. My memory is just a little short term.
So, but you kind of scouted your way in, so you didn't get set up till later into the morning.
Yeah.
And I was already kind of abandoning my spot at that point and decided I would just hike around, look for sign and stuff. So you dropped me off at one parking area, and I decided to kind of scout and still hunt my way through, end up at a farther parking area.
Yeah. Yep.
I ended up stopping, and I did see one small buck.
I was kind of set up on the bottom of a really thick, fairly thick area, bedding area, kind of a spot, and there's kind of a bluff, like right off behind where I was set up. And I wasn't terribly long before I got down. I had a doe come rolling by, and then there was a small buck behind her. But then the small buck smelled me, which I was pretty sure my wind was going the other way. But it was really light and variable that morning, so it just must have swirled.
Or maybe you stink.
Well, that could be too. I mean, it was inside 30 yards, so yeah.
So that was mid to late morning, and we were like, well, we're going to hunt all day most days, but maybe today
not
quickly run back, grab some food, and then get in really early. You had my sticks in your vehicle.
Yeah.
For some reason, we thought we should quick run back. I can't remember, to the house.
Well, I mentioned running to Casey's, and you were like, well, we might as well just go to the house. Okay.
So anyway,
but we weren't there too long. We quick
grabbed some lunch, and then we were heading in 1:30. Maybe. We decided to go all the way to the other side of this closest piece of public and see what was up over there. There was some big standing cornfield on the public. No, some of it was on public, and I think some of it was on private.
You're
but
talking
the public
about
kind of wrapped around
where
it.
we glassed some.
Where did we glass?
Off of that road.
No, we went over to the far side.
Oh,
and
yeah,
we were
that was the night we
out,
talked to those other folks.
But then there were some out-of-state guys on e-bikes getting ready to basically go right back in where we
some guys from Louisiana. We were going to go in and try to get
there was when we the other parking lot, there was a guy hiking in. There was a Missouri guy in another parking lot. There was that particular section had quite a bit of activity, which was a recurring theme, especially over on that part.
Yeah.
There's a lot of out-of-state guys over there. Well, we should just talk a little bit about, there were out-of-state plates.
There was
everywhere.
way more pressure
Louisiana,
this year
North Carolina.
So we went first in
Michigan,
19, is that
Wisconsin.
right? No, 18. When was our first year? Was it 18? And then we did 2019.
Yeah.
And then
it was not uncommon to find just
2020.
empty parking lots.
Yeah, exactly. So it seems like it was a major bump up.
We did not go in 2020, but from everything I heard, it was just as crazy. Yeah. Actually crazier.
Well, that's what these guys told us.
But then this year, I mean, yeah, this out-of-state guys.
Yeah.
And the deal is that you figure out-of-state guys, they're there all week. They're going to hunt.
They're there to hunt.
Morning and evening. And they're going to put in. But they probably have more time. They've taken time off or whatever than local guys who are slipping out after work. So, yeah, I mean, we saw Georgia, North Carolina, maybe South Carolina. There was a Maine guy.
Michigan, I think.
Michigan, Wisconsin, Texas.
It was a plethora of states.
Of course, our Virginia plates mixed in there.
I didn't see any other Virginia boys.
That's right. So, yeah, so there were guys heading into basically where we were going to go. So we
we talked
shifted
to
plan B's.
Super nice guys.
You were going to go, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You were going to go back to where you hunted the first morning.
I think so.
And slide in there somewhere. And I was going to go into this spot that I'd hunted year number 1. For some reason, had never been back to. It was basically what I kind of classify an overlooked spot. Not terribly far off the road, but with some...
Not even overlooked so much, it's just hard to get to. Well, I mean, there's...
A river crossing.
And most people...
Yeah.
Well, we didn't enjoy it necessarily
that
either,
required waiters, basically.
Yeah.
So got there, and... you dropped me off. So got there, and there were 2 kayaks at that access heading down the river, and I was like, oh no, they're just crossing the river and gonna go right where I wanted to go. Turns out they headed way on down the river. I don't know where they ended up. The direction they were heading, I felt okay about slipping in.
Which later that evening their kayaks were parked back there. So they must have came back up at some point.
Right. And they left them there, which
overnight
blows my mind.
Yeah.
I'm sure, So basically,
so it was maybe 3 or so till you got in over there. I mean, we drove around a little while.
Maybe 2:30.
Yeah, I don't know,
or so.
Decent time for us.
Yeah. So you were over on that other piece.
Yeah,
and you pretty much had an uneventful evening.
Pretty much, I had a little button buck stalking around down under my tree for 25 minutes.
So basically where I was going to go, there was this big pinch terrain feature thing where a deer, there was a bedding area, they would come out of it over to some crop fields. The crop fields we could glass, and we glassed them off and on throughout the whole trip. We had seen some does out there. And so I was going to try to get in on that pinch. And the wind was not terribly cooperative that night. So I basically ended up trying to really do this big loop. I couldn't.
You're trying to J-hook them.
Yeah, but because of the public land boundary, I could only do so much. Yeah. And I was just hoping the wind it was cutting it pretty close. So I ended up going to this terrain feature where everything pinched down, and I started to set up. I put up a couple sticks up in some squirrely little dinky tree, and I basically have like 1 10-yard shot. And I'm like, well, it might work. And then I was like, man, this is just stupid. I just can't shoot here.
Yeah.
And besides, they would basically be catching my wind about the time I could shoot or something.
Which the wind ended up kind of swirling around that evening, I think, so.
Probably. So I decided, no, it's not going to work. I'm going to push farther in towards the bedding area and see if I can find something more open. So I was heading back in, and the trees got bigger. they weren't the scrubby tree. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to
set up. But it was pretty
up,
thick underbrush.
I'm going to set up again.
Yeah.
So I was just about ready to start heading up my tree, and I heard a big grunt. I also bumped a few does on the way in. They were out like in some brushy fence row kind of areas. But immediately after I crossed that river, I started seeing more sign than I had seen in many of the other areas.
Yeah.
So I was pretty sure that maybe there was
something to this, yeah.
So I was almost to go up this tree, heard a big grunt, or a few grunts, and I'm like, well, I don't really want to be halfway up a tree and have a buck come by. So I think I called some and tried to get it to come back out, and nothing ever really happened. And so I almost climbed the tree, and then the same thing, I'm like, I just can't shoot here. There's just not a shot. So I said, well, let me push in farther and see if I can find more of an opening.
Was that where you left your sticks?
That's where I left my sticks, and I think I took my platform because I was thinking maybe I would sit on my platform.
Yeah.
Use it like a stool because I didn't have a stool.
Yeah.
And in the morning, I'd actually just hung my saddle, and I didn't have my sticks.
Like at the bottom of a tree.
At the bottom of a tree, which I've done that a few times. It kind of works.
Yeah.
And it depends on the tree angle and stuff as to whether it's very comfortable.
Just kind of as a seat to sit on, basically, yeah.
Yeah, you can even almost kneel, but the saddle takes some of the weight off your knees. Yeah. And so it's not as hard on your knees. Yeah. It's kind of weird. But
I should try it.
You should try it. It kind of works. I've done it a few times this year.
Yeah.
For sitting up on the ground. So basically, I just kept easing my way back into this really thick area, and I felt like the deer would have to move past me to get out to the fields. So I was just trying to push in far enough, but not too far.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up kind of coming to this place where it was a little more open, and I felt like I could shoot. I had several shots and just set up on the ground, and it didn't work to really set up with my platform. Actually, by that time, it was getting late enough, and I knew I was in close to deer, and I didn't want to make a lot of noise.
Yeah.
So I just basically, I kneeled behind this bush or tree or something, and a doe, I think as I was easing in there, another doe blew at me or saw me and ran back into the bedding area. So I'm like, well, that's not good. And I ended up grunting and just trying to pretend like I was a buck. And then maybe she was snorting at me. So I set up, had a doe walking up through, got to 10 yards, and she picked me because I was just kneeling behind this little bush. And so I'm like, well, if I was a buck, it's going to be, or if it's a buck following a doe, the doe's going to pick me.
Yeah.
And the buck, yeah. So I think at that point I moved slightly back. There was a couple big trees right behind me, and I thought maybe I could kind of get up against one of the trees, and it would maybe give me a little bit more cover, and I could shoot around. So basically, I'm back up against this big tree, and then a little buck comes out, and he picks me, and kind of just skirts me, doesn't spook. And I'm like, well, this isn't going to work. But now it's really getting on down to maybe half an hour or so till dark.
At 6:26, you texted me and said, doe got too close and blew the field. I was afraid that would happen.
Yeah, which it wasn't a field. It was a brushy bedding area, but I just
Yeah.
used a figure of speech.
Yeah.
So then I was sitting there, and I heard another deer coming, and I'm like, surely this is a buck. And sure enough, it was a buck. And he was walking at that point straight towards me, basically. There was a trail that kind of came right to where I was, which is not ideal when you're on the ground. So I drew pretty early, he had, I saw he had a decent rack.
Yeah.
And probably was a shooter. I went on and I drew pretty early because I knew that if I let him get too close, it wasn't going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw a little movement from me drawing and stopped and stared at me straight on. And I used that opportunity to count points and establish that he was a legal deer.
Yeah. 4 on a side where we were.
4 on a side in Missouri where we were. So he decides that, yeah, something's a little odd here. And so he basically turns broadside. And it's really thick where he's at, no shot. And he takes a couple steps and suddenly he hits an opening. And I'm at full draw and my pins are on him. And I'm like, this is really thick, but there's a little hole through there.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty much right on him. Maybe I should just shoot. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
I launched it, and I didn't have my lighted nocks on my arrows. Rookie move. So,
well, I don't know.
Well, I just didn't put them on.
Yeah.
I had them along, but I just hadn't put them on this year and whatever.
It's fine.
So I didn't know exactly where I hit. The shot felt pretty good, and it sounded good. It had that nice pop.
That's not the right sound, but
yeah. And so I was like, and then he went running off back into the bedding area, and I was almost positive I heard him crash, but then I wasn't sure that I had heard that. So I felt sort of good, and then I started second guessing myself. I was like, man, it's so thick. What if I hit a branch and made a weird noise?
What if he didn't have brow tines?
Like, what if he didn't have brow? What if I actually didn't take my time and make sure he counted? Because, around here we basically don't shoot anything under 8 points.
Yeah.
But it's never like a hard and fast rule. It's just
not a law,
We're going by antler size and width and whatever as to whether they're a shooter or not. And so all these things are going through my head, and I started getting a lot of anxiety. I went on and slid up while it was still light and got my arrow, found it. Yeah. Total pass through, and the arrow looked really good.
Yep.
And I think I called you at that point. And
it was just a few minutes before.
Yeah, I probably should have just
end of shooting light.
Waited.
No, there was
disturbed you.
Nothing near
Basically,
me.
I wanted you to get on over so we could track it, whatever, because I knew it'd take you a while to get there.
Yep.
So that was kind of a bundle of whatever.
Nerves?
Yeah, I was just nervous. I felt sick. I was like, I'm pretty sure everything's fine, but...
Yeah. Just like a little bit of context, like we hunted, like I said, 2018, 2019, a week each year, and this was the first year either of us had shot.
Right.
Well, you shot that one,
but and ended up just a little minor wound on it, basically.
Yeah.
So you started getting down, but you had to get down, pack up, hike out.
Yeah, it was about a half mile in.
So, and I started to follow a blood trail, and I couldn't really. Did I only have my phone light? I'm not sure.
Can't remember.
But basically, I just got cold feet. I'm like, it's stupid just to push in here, man. Give it some time. Back out. So I got my pack and everything, my bow, and I headed back to the river where I was going to meet you.
Yeah.
And try to help you get across, and then we were going to go look for it. So that's basically what we did.
Yep.
Took a lot longer to do.
Took a while to get back in.
But
we finally found your sticks.
Yeah. So like I need to go back and get my sticks, which I left at that one tree, and I had already done like loops and loops looking for them. It's just it was thick, and everything looks different after dark. And I was sure I could just walk to them, so I hadn't even marked them on the map. And I was afraid I was going to have to come back in the following day in the daylight to find them.
I got completely turned around as we were heading in there, just like I hope he knows where he's going.
So anyway, after I got you and got you across the river, which you ended up just wading across and getting
I had boots on, but
above knee-high boots.
Yep.
And ended up finding my sticks, went on down.
Found your bow.
I left my bow and my arrow, I guess, right where I shot the deer.
Yep.
And so we eased in 10, 15 yards. There was just a little bit of blood, but then it really took us a little bit to get on the trail. Yeah. But then we hit blood, and it was a good blood trail. Yeah. And we're like, well, whatever's at the end of this is probably dead.
Yeah.
And so we trailed it back into this thick stuff, 40 yards?
Maybe 40 yards.
Yeah, and popped around the corner, and there he lay in a big grassy spot. And
immediately we saw he had brow tines, and he was a very legal deer.
Yeah. Not a huge buck, but a decent 8-point.
He's gotten bigger since we got home, and he's sitting out here where we see him occasionally.
Yeah, and man, just, I don't know, a lot of emotions because this was year number 3. The pressure was crazy.
Yeah.
So that
and it was your first evening hunt. Like, you hadn't even climbed a tree hardly.
Yeah, and so I had this weird feeling of like, man, I almost regret it because like he's not a giant, and it's such a weird thing. Like I was very happy for it.
Yeah,
it's not that, but he's not a giant, and suddenly I tag out on the first night there, and you got the whole week ahead of us. You're going to have to hunt by yourself.
Well, a whole week is relative. It was already Wednesday. Like, we got out there later than we meant to.
That's true. We had thought about staying until Monday or Tuesday or whatever the following week if we needed to. So all this is going through our mind. We've been seeing good deer movement.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the pressure's insane.
Yep.
Lots there are people everywhere, and it's going to be hard, too. So... Anyway, I was
definitely made the right call.
Very happy that pulled the trigger and whatever, and we had gotten it done finally out there.
So we found him like 8:30, something like that.
Probably. I don't even remember what time. It probably got dark soon after 7. 7:15 maybe. It might have been a little after that, but we had to get him out of there basically.
Yep.
And it wasn't terribly far in there, so we decided not to quarter him and get him out that way.
I mean, probably had 400 yards to go with him. Maybe 5.
It was a little ways. And then,
it.
Up and down across the river,
yeah,
that was the
worst
biggest
part.
challenge.
Yeah.
Got him to the river, basically got him down in this little weird channel which separated from the main part of the river, and you were already wet up to your knees, waist. So you just like, I'm just going to get in here, and I'm just going to drag him up through this channel.
Which worked pretty well, except for several places that it was
muddy.
Like
some of the rivers out there are just muddy as all get out, and just this really slippery, slimy mud. Anyway, we eventually got him out, Well, we didn't have a knife either.
Yeah.
Back, that was dumb. We could have field dressed him back there.
Back in the back. Which I don't know if I'd have wanted to drag him through the river too much with him wide open. Anyway, it all worked out.
finally got him back, and got him hung up at 10 o'clock, 10:30.
Got him down there when we got back out, hung him up, went to bed. Yep.
Yeah, pretty tired because it was
very tiring.
It was a haul. Type 2 fun.
Yeah,
but
so I think we should cut it here and do another episode finishing out the week. I wonder.
That'll work.
I mean, we're already here around 30 minutes. No, it's just how these things go.
Pretty long-winded.
You get a little bit of detail, and so next time we'll wrap up the rest of the week and maybe make some takeaways
and lessons
things
learned
to remember for next time.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you guys for listening. If you listened or whatever, and we'll talk to you again at some point. See ya.